Earlier this year, the Dutch government announced plans to significantly amend the Remote Gambling Act. On Tuesday, the day before yesterday, the government collapsed. So, what will happen next? Here to address this question, we have a very knowledgeable panel consisting of Frans van Steenes, associate partner at FGS Global, replacing Bert Bakker, who unfortunately fell ill today, and Justin Franssen, partner at Franssen, Tolboom, Advocaten. Frank Woerd, editor-in-chief at CasinoNieuws, will moderate the discussion. Gentlemen, please come to the stage and welcome.
The Dutch cabinet collapsed on Monday, and that changed the political playing field overnight. And it also meant that I had to redo my original plan, because we had a whole different outline for this today's discussion. But unlike Geert Wilders, I don't walk away when things get complicated. So here we are. First things first, what does it mean, the developments of last Monday? Basically, what does it mean for the people here in this audience today?
Frankly, I don't know. I mean, it's too fresh. On Monday I had lunch with Bert. Seems to be my permanent sidekick at these kinds of events. I think the last time we spoke also at Gaming Holland 5-6 years ago, and we said, well, the industry has to unite and all of that. And we were having a think about what would happen if government would fall. Well, 24 hours later, it happened. So we indeed had to redo, and now we had to redo as well because Bert isn't here. But I mean, for the immediate term, I think nothing really will happen. Not for now. I mean, it's business as usual. The Ministry of Justice continues to execute, I think, the plans as laid down in a letter of the State Secretary of 14 February, which contains 13 measures, as you know, most important one being age from 18 to 21, advertising restrictions, and an overarching playing limit. I think those are the three key elements. Mm-hmm. They will continue their work, maybe a little bit of a slower pace, who knows. The summer recess is coming up. But I don't see an immediate effect. Longer term, there could be. But that's crystal ball gazing, to be quite frank with you, something I'm really bad at, as you know. To get to it, will they label this dossier as controversial? Again, I don't know, but I don't think so, to be quite frank with you.
Frans?
Maybe Frans, you can elaborate on that.
I try to do so. Of course, let's say it was unexpected what was happening, let's say, just a week ago. Everybody expected, let's say, shortly before summer season, but certainly not before the NATO top. I agree on a short stage, there wouldn't happen too much, let's say, affecting our industry. On the long run, it will be crucial, let's say, what will be the outcome, of course, of the elections by the end of October. But I think, let's say, as our famous football player also always has his saying, let's say, either voordeel is een nadeel. There's a lot of work to do now, I think, for the industry in the upcoming 3 to 6 months. Because these new elections, does also mean a lot of new opportunities and chances. Threats also, certainly threats, because nobody knows what the outcome of the election will be. Everybody has ideas about it, everybody is counting already, 30-30-20, a new cabinet, etc., but a lot of things are happening in the coming 4 to 6 months, that's for sure. So I think it's very interesting to see what we as industry can do in the coming 3 to 6 months.
What would you suggest people be doing right now, starting today?
It's a long story.
On this
absolutely a unified approach. What's necessary now? Let's say if there are a new cabinet is coming up, a new parliament is coming up. So you need now, on all the issues, the 3 issues you mentioned already, a really unified approach. Because the business, the industry, is for the political debate, is not the biggest issue, to say it euphemistic. They have other issues on the agenda, defense, health, climate, etc., etc.
Immigration.
And they need a hell of a lot of money. So if we want to change anything, we have to start working now, because everybody thinks nothing is going to happen in the coming 5-6 months. You see now, let's say, on the departments, a kind of energy leaking. That's always after the fall of a cabinet. That's point one. Point two, parliamentarians are extremely, let's say, at least nervous. Do we get back, let's say, in Parliament, yes or no? The other top-of-mind issues at the moment. And more important, let's say, the political parties are writing the new party programs in the coming 3 months. So, and there we have to be very aware of. There we have to be at the table. If you're not on the table, you're on the menu. Huh?
You want a unified approach, but what should be the number one concern on their agenda to get into those party programs? We're up to you. Is that
operating as a unified branch?
But what do you want to make?
Unified industry.
What do you want to make sure that's in the party programs? Is that concerning the tax rate? Is that concerning the illegal market that we've been talking about today? Or should it be all of them?
That's the best position you have. Let's say if you see that the illegal market is growing like hell, I think this is the argument number one. It was a very good, and let's say what Arjen Blok was saying this morning too. I think this is our threat number one, the illegal market. So focus on the real topics parliamentarians and party tigers understand.
When we're talking about the tax rate, January 1st, is that set in stone? Could that be controversial now? What are your thoughts on what's happening on that subject specifically?
Yeah, that's the discussion, the hot topic, let's say, at this moment, what will be controversial and what not. But that's the parliament who's deciding about that. And it sounds not too nice, but let's say this is not their priority number one. The discussions are about the other issues at the moment.
Yeah, but I think your question there is, Frank, are you able to reverse the 37.8%, which is applicable as of the 1st of January? To be quite frank, I'm not very positive about that. We have about 6 to 8 weeks to, rationalize the taxes. Recess is coming up, elections are coming up, and to me it's set in stone. I'm not sure what the wizardry of the ones of Holland Casino can do in terms of lobby, but hopefully we're all going to be surprised by someone. But I'm not very positive. Further down the line, and then I think I'm speaking. I'm following on what Frans is saying. Further down the line, once it comes to the party programs for the elections, I think it becomes really important to indeed explain, the growth of the black market. Yes, there was some discussion in the last debates in Parliament. There are indeed some parliamentarians who see the danger of, a tax hike and the black market, but certainly not all parliamentarians do. And I think it's very, very important to explain to them that it's not just the black market, which is now heavily fought by the gambling authority, and good on them. But as we saw from the H2 numbers, the effects of a tax hike on those numbers, the black market increase. And now we're seeing, I think we're at 49% or so in regulated GGR. I wouldn't be surprised if, a year after introduction of the 37.8, we're seeing the sort of numbers we saw from our German friends. Literally a lot of outflux to the black market, and I think you should not stop telling that story, despite the fact that some politicians don't seem to be willing to listen anymore, right? For quite a number of reasons. But you should not stop doing that. And the unified approach, yes, it's something we have been consistently saying on this stage. Let's unite, let's not fight each other. Divide and conquer. The phrase.
But the unified approach, really, let's say on not more than 3 topics. Unified, 3 topics, and fact-based. Let's say what we have seen on facts and figures this morning, this will really help. Because again, it's not the highest priority of the parties at this moment who are writing the programs. It's not the highest topic and the most important topic, let's say, for the parliament that's still existing. So make it, let's say, very fact-based.
Yeah.
The 3 issues we mentioned and unified. So get also, let's say, the other ones who are never
Yeah.
There's no media in the room, no. The parties who don't want to cooperate now.
Is there an opportunity there? Because we've seen that the lobby or the tax differentiation rate has been killed. Could the postcode lottery group be a partner now after all these years? Because they are now aligned when it comes to the motivation to get the tax rates.
A question of the two branch organizations too, VNLOK and NOGA. Are you willing, let's say, working together to get, let's say, the right messages across, let's say, to a new cabinet and to the...
It takes two to tango. I mean, so far, the postal lottery has done its own sort of lobby, if you will. We're not gambling. We want different marketing rules. We want lower taxes and so forth. The third one is now killed for the second time. You remember when we were looking at the regulation back in time, there was discussion about a split tax rate of 29%. That was killed for a variety of legal and practical reasons.
Initially, it would be going back to 25%.
Exactly. That was a proposal of Meili Vos, I think, a motion of Meili Vos. So 3 years after the introduction of the legislation, we would go back to 25%, which is, as we have seen from the H2 numbers, probably the closer to a realistic tax rate. And now at 37.8 GGR, we are the highest in Europe, if I'm not mistaken. But that is not going to happen. And there was a motion after Meili Vos who killed that first motion of Meili Vos, so that's not going to work. But I think for the first time now, there is actually quite a unique moment, which is that the interests of all individual stakeholders are completely aligned if it comes to taxes. Because we're not going to go for a split tax rate, which means that there now is the momentum and ability for the likes of Nova Media to work together.
Land-based online lotteries.
Of course, and the objective should be not to have yet another discussion on the split tax rate, but to go for a lower realistic tax rate, which should be maximum of 25%. Which, and again, look at where we're coming from. If you look at the old gambling legislation, the tax rate was 15%. We're now at 37.8. So,
besides unifying your voice, are there any other tips, do's and don'ts that you would suggest to the people here in the audience and specifically the operators in the coming period when it comes to marketing or any other? Because I felt like the discussion shifted a little bit from the legal operators to focusing on the illegal operators. We saw it in the cabinet, we saw it in the motions. I felt like it pivoted the right way. The focus was on the legal operators.
And it still is. I think it still is. I mean, we heard it this morning from the Gambling Authority. There is, and what is great to see is that, the regulator is approaching the industry more and more. It's, the regulator 2.0. We have seen that, operators have seen that, which is fantastic. Operators and, industry stakeholders are bringing to the attention, stuff to the regulator in terms of, how to enforce, they're learning from each other, which is great. I don't see that disappearing. I think the whole, the recent events do not have any material effect on the clear focus on enforcement. That's not going to change, I believe.
We're expecting elections in October?
No, last Wednesday of October is foreseen now. It's not definite, but again, I just want to echo what you were saying. I think it's really very important. You have great opportunities at this moment now. Let's say to reposition the branch, to reposition the industry, let's say with a positive story. A lot of things are done over the last 3 years, and a lot of things we're doing good. There were nice solutions. We have a strong authority. Everybody has his own opinion about the CASA, but I think we have a strong authority in this country. We have great operators who are doing their job well. The only thing we have to do now is, let's say, a unified approach of new parliamentarians, getting the right messages in the party programs, and telling the story. And of course, then it's fact-based, what you can tell what the danger and the threats are of, let's say, illegal gambling and a lot of other issues playing now. But make short stories, frame it very well, position the branch, let's say, in a better shape. I think that's what we have to do for the coming 3 to 6 months. It's not long term, it's short term.
I think we'll keep it at that. It makes a lot of sense and a strong message to the people in the audience. I want to thank you, and thanks everyone for listening.
So in the meantime, we have some questions coming in through Slido. I'm not sure. We look at 2 questions here. So, gentlemen, which parties would be potentially willing to revise their positions on gambling in a way that would benefit the industry, and what arguments would convince them? Question from the audience.
Any
crystal ball.
Maybe. But they'll probably be decimated.
The answer is short, in my opinion, not any, if you don't get the right arguments on the table.
But if you can focus all your attention on one political party where you bring the numbers and you bring the unified voice, which one would you knock on its door first?
Of course, we have now already we have the discussions about what are the new parties in the cabinet, and they're talking about 30, 30, 20, etc., etc. But 6 months nowadays in politics is a long time. So I think you really have to focus more or less on all parties, including Bert Bakker's party, D66. You have to include them all this one. So with a compelling story. And showing, let's say, what we have done, the steps forward we have made over the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and what a solution is for the next future. If you're talking about illegal gambling, what they are missing on taxes, etc., fact-based.
Tell the story. Justin, anything to add?
I tend to concur.
The crystal ball you left at home this year?
Sorry?
The crystal ball, you left it at home this year?
I left it at home.
But you're a betting man.
Sometimes.
I think there was a second question from the audience. How can the industry mitigate the reputational impact of the KSA, the regulator issuing major fines to licensed operators?
Specifically the 700K one, I imagine.
How can the industry mitigate?
It's a legal question for you.
Well, comply.
Comply.
Okay.
Very clear answer.
Or the reputation after you receive the fine, or what's the question? I'm not entirely sure.
Let's leave it for a lunch break. The person who asked the question, please come forward during lunch, and we will discuss that. Frans, Justin, Frank, thank you very much for joining us on stage and sharing your expertise. Thank you very much.
Thanks.